Hi there, welcome back to the Bible in a Year Live Tanakh Project. Today is week 39, day 6. Only 2 more days to go, and then we would have completed the entire Tanakh. Good job, guys. Good job. All right, today we're going to be reading Second Chronicles chapters 32 to 34. This section highlights the contrasting reigns of three Judahite kings. Hezekiah faithfully trusts God, resulting in the miraculous defeat of Sennacherib's invading Assyrian army. Following his death, Manasseh rules wickedly, but later repents, while Ammon reigns evil and is assassinated. Finally, young King Josiah brings a significant spiritual reformation and repairs the temple. All right, without further ado, let's dive on in. This week we've been reading from the Names of God Bible, and so I will continue with that. Second Chronicles 32. God saves Judah from the Assyrians. After everything Hezekiah had done so faithfully, King Sennacherib of Assyria came to invade Judah. He set up camp to attack the fortified cities. He intended to conquer them himself. When Hezekiah saw that Sennacherib had come to wage war against Jerusalem, he, his officers, and his military staff made plans to stop the water from flowing out of the springs outside the city. They helped him to do it. A large crowd gathered as they stopped all the springs and the brook that flowed through the land. They said, "Why should the king of Assyria find plenty of water?" Hezekiah worked hard. He rebuilt all the broken sections of the wall, made the towers taller, built another wall outside the city wall, strengthened the middle in the city of David, and made plenty of weapons and shields. He appointed military commanders over the troops and gathered the commanders in the square by the city gate. He spoke these words of encouragement: "Be strong and courageous. Don't be frightened or terrified by the king of Assyria or the crowd with him. Someone greater is on our side. The king of Assyria has human power on his side, but Yahweh or Elohim is on our side to help us and fight our battles." So the people were encouraged by what King Hezekiah of Judah said. After this, while King Sennacherib of Assyria and all his royal forces were attacking Lachish, he sent his officers to King Hezekiah of Judah and to all the people in Judah who were in Jerusalem to say, "This is what King Sennacherib of Assyria says. Why are you so confident as you live in Jerusalem while it is blockaded? Isn't Hezekiah misleading you and abandoning you to die from hunger and thirst when he says Yahweh or Elohim will rescue us from the king of Assyria? Isn't this the same Hezekiah who got rid of Yahweh's places of worship and altars and showed Judah and Jerusalem worship and sacrifice at one altar? Don't you know what I and my predecessors have done to the people of all other countries? Were any of the gods of these other nations ever able to rescue their countries from me? Were the gods of these nations able to rescue their people from my control? My predecessors claimed and destroyed these nations. Is your Elohim able to rescue you from my control? Don't let Hezekiah deceive you or persuade you like this. Don't believe him. No God of any nation or kingdom could save his people from me or my ancestors. Certainly, your Elohim will not rescue you from me." Sennacherib's officers said more against Yahweh Elohim and his servant Hezekiah. Sennacherib wrote letters cursing Yahweh Elohim of Israel. These letters said, "As the gods of the nations in other countries couldn't rescue their gods from me, Hezekiah's Elohim cannot rescue his people from me." Sennacherib's officers shouted loudly in the Judean language to the troops who were on the wall of Jerusalem. They tried to frighten and terrify the troops so that they could capture the city. They spoke about Elohim of Israel as if he were one of the gods made by human hands and worshipped by the people in other countries. Then King Hezekiah and the prophet Isaiah, son of Amos, prayed about this and called to heaven. Yahweh sent an angel who exterminated all the soldiers, officials, and commanders in the Assyrian king's camp. Humiliated, Sennacherib returned to his own country. When he went into the temple of his God, some of his own sons killed him with a sword. So Yahweh saved Hezekiah and the people living in Jerusalem from King Sennacherib of Assyria and from everyone else. Yahweh gave them peace with all their neighbors. Many people still went to Jerusalem to bring gifts to Yahweh and expensive presents to King Hezekiah of Judah. From then on, he was considered important by all the nations. Other events in Hezekiah's life. In those days, Hezekiah became sick and was about to die. He prayed to Yahweh, who answered him and gave him a miraculous sign. But Hezekiah was conceited, so he didn't repay Yahweh for his kindness. Yahweh became angry with him, with Judah, and with Jerusalem. Hezekiah and the people living in Jerusalem humbled themselves when they realized they had become conceited. So Yahweh didn't vent his anger on them during Hezekiah's time. Hezekiah became richer and was highly honored. He prepared storerooms for himself to hold silver, gold, precious stones, spices, shields, and all kinds of valuables. He made sheds to store his harvest of grain, new wine, and fresh olive oil, and he made barns for all his cattle and stalls for his flocks. He made cities for himself because he had many sheep and cattle. Elohim had given him a lot of property. Hezekiah was the one who stopped the water from flowing from the upper outlet of Gihon. He channeled the water directly underground to the west side of the city of David. Hezekiah succeeded in everything he did. When the leaders of Babylon sent ambassadors to ask him about the miraculous sign that had happened in the land, Elohim left him. Elohim did this to test him, to find out everything that was in Hezekiah's heart. Everything else about Hezekiah, including his devotion to Elohim, is written in the vision of the prophet Isaiah, son of Amos, and in the records of the kings of Judah and Israel. Hezekiah lay down in death with his ancestors. He was buried in the upper tombs of David's descendants. When Hezekiah died, all of Judah and the people of Jerusalem honored him. His son Manasseh succeeded him as king. 2 Chronicles 33, King Manasseh of Judah. Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to rule, and he ruled for 55 years in Jerusalem. He did what Yahweh considered evil by copying the disgusting things done by the nations that Yahweh had forced out of the Israelites' way. He rebuilt the illegal places of worship that his father Hezekiah had torn down. He set up altars dedicated to other gods, the Baals, and made a pole dedicated to the goddess Asherah, as King Ahab of Israel had done. Manasseh, like Ahab, worshipped and served the entire army of heaven. He built altars in Yahweh's temple, where Yahweh had said, "My name will be in Jerusalem forever." In the two courtyards of Yahweh's temple, he built altars for the entire army of heaven. He burnt his son as a sacrifice in the valley of Ben Hinnom, consulted fortune tellers, cast evil spells, practiced witchcraft, and appointed royal mediums and psychics. He did many things that made Yahweh furious. Manasseh had a carved idol made. Then he set it up in Elohim's temple, where Elohim had said to David and his son Solomon, "I have chosen this temple and Jerusalem from all the tribes of Israel. I will put my name here forever. I will never again remove Israel from the land that I set aside for their ancestors, if they will obey all my commands, all the teachings, the ordinances, and the regulations I gave through Moses." Manasseh misled Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem so that they did more evil things than the nations that Yahweh had destroyed when the Israelites arrived in the land. When Yahweh spoke to Manasseh and his people, they wouldn't even pay attention. So Yahweh made the army commanders of the king of Assyria invade Judah. They took Manasseh captive, put a hook in his nose, put him in bronze shackles, and brought him to Babylon. When he experienced this distress, he begged Yahweh, his Elohim, to be kind and humbled himself in front of the Elohim of his ancestors. He prayed to Yahweh, and Yahweh accepted his prayer and listened to his request. Yahweh brought him back to his kingdom in Jerusalem. Then Manasseh knew that Yahweh is Elohim. After this, Manasseh rebuilt the outer wall of the city of David from West Gihon Spring in the valley to the entrance of Fish Gate. He made the wall go around the Ophel, and he built it very high. He put army commanders in every fortified city in Judah. Manasseh got rid of the foreign gods and the idol in Yahweh's temple. He got rid of the altars he had built in the temple of Yahweh's mountain and in Jerusalem. He built Yahweh's altar and sacrificed fellowship offerings and thank offerings on it. And he told Judah to serve Yahweh Elohim of Israel. The people continued to sacrifice at illegal places of worship, but they sacrificed only to Yahweh the Elohim. Everything else about Manasseh, including his prayer to his Elohim and the words that the seers spoke to him in the name of Yahweh Elohim of Israel, are in the records of the kings of Israel. His prayer and how Elohim accepted it are written in the records of Hosea. The things he did before he humbled himself are also written there. This includes all his sins and unfaithfulness and the places where he built illegal worship sites and set up idols and poles dedicated to the goddess Asherah. Manasseh lay down in death with his ancestors. They buried him in his own palace. His son Amnon succeeded him as king, King Amnon of Judah. Amnon was 22 years old when he began to rule, and he ruled for 2 years in Jerusalem. He did what Yahweh considered evil, as his father Manasseh had done. Amnon sacrificed to all the idols his father Manasseh had made, and he worshipped them. He didn't humble himself in front of Yahweh as his father Manasseh had humbled himself. Instead, Amnon continued to sin. His officials plotted against him and killed him in his palace. Then the people of the land killed everyone who had plotted against King Amnon. They made his son Josiah king in his place. 2 Chronicles 34. King Josiah reforms Judah's worship. Josiah was 8 years old when he began to rule, and he was king for 31 years in Jerusalem. He did what Yahweh considered right. He lived in the ways of his ancestor David and never stopped living this way. In the 8th year of his reign, while he was still a boy, he began to dedicate his life to serving the Elohim of his ancestor David. In his 12th year as king, he began to make Judah and Jerusalem clean by destroying the illegal places of worship, poles dedicated to the goddess Asherah, carved idols, and metal idols. He had the altars of the various Baal gods torn down. He cut down the incense altars that were above them, and he destroyed the Asherah poles, carved idols, and metal idols. He grounded them into powder and scattered the powder over the tombs of those who had sacrificed to them. He burnt the bones of the priests on their altars, so he made Judah and Jerusalem clean. In the cities of Manasseh, Ephraim, Simeon, and as far as Naphtali, he removed all their temples, tore down the altars, beat the Asherah poles and idols into powder, and cut down all the incense altars everywhere in Israel. Then he went back to Jerusalem. King Josiah rededicates Judah to God's promise. In the 18th year of his reign, as he was making the land and the temple clean, Josiah sent Shaphan, son of Azaliah, Maaseiah, the mayor of the city, and Joah, the royal historian, and son of Joahaz, to repair the temple of Yahweh his Elohim. They came to the chief priest Hilkiah and gave him the money that he had brought to Elohim's temple, the money that the Levite doorkeepers had collected from the tribes of Manasseh and Ephraim, from all who were left in Israel, from everyone in the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, and from the inhabitants of Jerusalem. They gave the money to the foremen who were in charge of Yahweh's temple. These foremen gave it to the workmen who were restoring and repairing the temple. These workers included carpenters and builders. They were to buy quarried stones and wood for the fittings and beams of the buildings that the kings of Judah had allowed to run down. The men did their work faithfully under the supervision of Gahath and Obadiah, Levite descendants from Merari, and Zechariah and Meshullam, descendants of Kohath. The Levites, who were skilled musicians, also supervised the workers and directed all the workmen on the various jobs. Some of the Levites served as scribes, officials, or gatekeepers. When they brought out the money that had been deposited in Yahweh's temple, the priest Hilkiah found the book of Yahweh's teachings written by Moses. Hilkiah told the scribe Shaphan, "I have found the book of the teachings in Yahweh's temple." Hilkiah gave the book to Shaphan. Shaphan took the book to the king and reported, "We are doing everything you told us to do. We took the money that was donated in Yahweh's temple and gave it to the supervisors and the workmen." Then the scribe Shaphan told the king, "The priest Hilkiah has given me a book." And Shaphan read it to the king. When the king heard what the teachings said, he tore his clothes in distress. Then the king gave an order to Hilkiah, Ahikam, son of Shaphan, Abdon, son of Micah, the scribe Shaphan, and the royal official Asaiah, He said, on behalf of those who are left in Israel and Judah and me, ask Yahweh about the words in this book that was found. Yahweh's fierce anger has been poured on us because our ancestors did not obey the word of Yahweh by doing everything written in this book. So Hilkiah and the king's officials went to talk to the prophet Huldah about this matter. She was the wife of Shallum, son of Tokhath and grandson of Hashrah. Shallum was in charge of the royal wardrobe. Huldah was living in the second part of Jerusalem. She told them, this is what Yahweh Elohim of Israel says. Tell the men who sent you to me, this is what Yahweh says. I'm going to bring disaster on this place and on the people living here according to the curses written in the book that was read to the king of Judah. I will do this because they have abandoned me and sacrificed to other gods in order to make me furious. Therefore, my anger will be poured on this place and will never come to an end. Huldah added, tell Judah's king who sent you to me to ask Yahweh a question. This is what Yahweh Elohim of Israel says about the words you heard. You had a change of heart and humbled yourself in front of Elohim when you heard my words against this place and those who live here. You humbled yourself, tore your clothes in distress, and cried in front of me. So I will listen to you, declares Yahweh. That is why I'm going to bring you to your ancestors. I'm going to bring you to your grave in peace, and your eyes will not see any of the disaster I'm going to bring on this place and those who live here. So they reported this to the king. Then the king sent for all the respected leaders of Judah and Jerusalem to join him. The king, everyone in Judah, everyone living in Jerusalem, the priests, the Levites, and all the people, young and old, went up to Yahweh's temple. He read everything written in the book of promise found in Yahweh's temple so that they could hear it. The king stood in his place and made a promise to Yahweh that he would follow Yahweh and obey his commands, instructions, and laws with all his heart and soul. He said he would live by the terms of the promise written in this book. He also made all those found in Jerusalem and Benjamin join with him in the promise. Then the people of Jerusalem lived according to the promise of Elohim, the Elohim of their ancestors. Josiah got rid of all the disgusting idols throughout Israelite territory. He made all people found in Israel serve Yahweh their Elohim. As long as he lived, they didn't stop following Yahweh Elohim of their ancestors. This is the word of the Lord. Amen. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you again tomorrow where we will close out the week and close out the book, and we will also complete the Bible in a Year Live Tanakh project. Thanks for joining us today. See you tomorrow.